Good morning. The June 4th, 2019 meeting of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners will come to order, and we are pleased to have with us this morning Ms. Kelly Favor leading us in our invocation. And after the invocation, please remain standing for the pledge to the flag.
If you would bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, God, we just come to you in the name of Jesus. We thank you, Lord, for this day. We thank you for the blessing that's upon this place. Lord, we just lift up to you now with humble, grateful hearts, adoration, and glory. God, I ask for your peace to just surround us now. I thank you for prosperity in this county. I thank you, Lord, for those that you've placed in authority over us. Lord, I praise you that you have your way in this place. God, I just ask now that you would just be over this meeting. Lord, let everything glorify you. Lord, let nothing be done that would hinder your presence in this place. And God, now I just thank you again. I thank you for this day. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Favors, for coming in today, being with us to render such a wonderful invocation. We are so blessed to hear your voice this morning, so thank you. Good morning to the citizens of Douglas County. The Board of Commissioners value your voice, and we appreciate your participation in county government. Clerk, do we have public comment this morning?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we have 6 citizens, I believe, that you shared with me that has signed up this morning. And we really appreciate our citizens. And again, Clerk, thank you for advising me. The Board of Commissioners respect our citizens' rights to address the government. You all will be allotted 3 minutes to speak, and however, when you hear the buzzer, I ask that you please wrap up your sentence, because that means that your time has expired. Please keep in mind that your subject matter today must be germane to the agenda. Our first citizen that we have is Mary Lou Ross. And Ms. Ross, when you come forth, if you could just give us your address for the record, and then your subject matter this morning is the Foxhall and Deputy Coroner.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good
My name
morning.
is Mary Lou Ross, 4147 Douglasville, North Quail. I am a little bit nervous. I have taken the day off at this time in order to speak with you because this matter concerns me and each one of you. First, about Foxhall. Private development, if it has a good possibility of making money, will have private investors lined up to put that money into it. That's called private enterprise. The main words here are private investors and making money. They say that they need a commitment from our taxpayers to back bonds so that they can shop those bonds to investors. That's what I call a signature loan to them, and without any recourse if the project doesn't perform as they expect it to. So what happens if we give them money, yours and mine, and it doesn't perform as they project? We'll be left holding an empty bag, and they'll be already gone onto a new project. I'm a taxpayer in this county and a business owner, and if I could earmark my taxes as to where they would go, it would not be to Foxhall. Please don't make me back those bonds. Please vote no on those bonds for Foxhall. As far as the deputy coroner goes, it is my understanding that it needs to be brought before the commissioners before a hire is made. This hire was made before it came in front of the commissioners. Please take a look at this very closely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mary Lou Ross, for coming in today, and especially taking time off your job to express your concerns, and we really appreciate you. We will take this matter under advisement. Thank you so much. Next, we have Mr. Nathan Hedge Mr. Hedge, if you could come forth and just give us your address, and your subject matter is West End, of the Westin Hotel and the Conference Center at Vauxhall.
Hi, my name is Nathan Hedges. The address is 3000 Caps Ferry Road, Douglasville County. I want to thank the Commission for hearing these comments today. At the Allen Morris Company, we seek to structure partnerships that are beneficial to all the parties involved. We wish to have a good public-private relationship with Douglasville County and ensure that both the public and private sides of the partnership feel that they are benefiting by doing the project. Based on the comments we heard from the Board of Commissioners at yesterday's working session, we feel that we have not done a good job as of yet communicating the benefits of the proposed changes to the 2016 IGA to the county and the Board of Commissioners. Since the Allen Morris Company assumed control of the management of the Westin Hotel and Conference Center in 2017, we have worked diligently to secure private financing and start construction. However, we realized in late 2017, after concerted work with investors and lenders, that several aspects of the IGA that the prior board approved in 2016 were simply not compelling to the private financing markets. Therefore, we approached this board together with the Development Authority to address those aspects of the 2016 IGA that are preventing us from moving forward with the project. The revisions to the IGA that the authority provided to the county last week decreases the county's risk and tax allocation significantly from the terms of the currently approved IGA. The revised terms reduce the amount of the tax allocation from $40 million to $25 million. The revised terms eliminate the bonds for infrastructure and any guarantee that was ever proposed. And the revised terms eliminate the risk the county would have starting in year 31 of owning a conference center by leasing instead the conference center to the hotel operator who would assume all risks of the conference center. For these reasons, the Allen Morris Company respectfully requests that the board defer the vote on the amendment for the 2016 IGA so that there is adequate time to ensure all the proposed changes are fully understood by both the public and private side of the partnership. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much as well. We appreciate you coming in today to express your opinion and your concern today, Mr. Hedges, Mr. Hedge. All right, next we have Mr. Terry Baggett. Mr. Baggett, would you please come forth, state your address and your subject matter is Vauxhall Conference Center.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I'm Terry Baggett, 4975 Wild Oak Trail, Douglasville. And full disclosure, I am a member of the Economic Development Authority of Douglas County. I rise to request your support of business item number 8, the approval of the amended IGA for the conference center. And in doing that, we at the Development Authority, we have wrestled with this, I know, a good 10 years. And we are down to the point now where we are at the finalized position where we can have this IGA approved and we can move forward and we can get a position to be proud of at that part of Douglas County. Been born and raised there, seen it grow from my Aunt Virginia's farm to where we are now. Now, having set that aside, I refer to the Allen Morris letter of May 29. What are the specific sources and uses of the bond funds for the project? There's a referral to page 6 of Exhibit A, but I dropped down to the last sentence. Per the intergovernmental agreement between the board and the authority, the IGA, proceeds of the bond may only be used to fund construction of the conference center. No part of the hotel facilities may be funded with the bond proceeds of this. I go on to page 2 of the letter from Allen Morris Company, and the question was, how can Douglas County be sure the project will achieve the returns and the tax generation necessary to be successful? Again, the answer, the Allen Morris Company that has been referred to, goes to Exhibit B. A lot of numbers, and I'm sure you all have read that, but I dropped down to the final sentence. Finally, since the amended IGA no longer contemplates any guarantee of the bonds by Douglas County, the county of the hotel bonds, the county has no financial liability in the unlikely event the hotel does not perform. We are at the position to transform and keep Capps Ferry Road, the bridge at the Chattahoochee River, something to be proud of. We need not contemplate, I would hope in the future, another truck route. We've got enough warehouses. That's been done. Let's approve item number 8 on the business item. I urge your approval. I thank you for your time, and let's move on.
Thank you so much, Mr. Baggett, and we appreciate your opinion today and also you coming forward to express your concern. Next, we have Mr. Nick Byers. Mr. Byers, would you please come forward and please give us your address, and your subject matter is Westin Hotel.
That's correct. I'm Nick Byers. I live at 5421 Legacy Trail, Douglasville, Georgia. I think I've had a unique insight to this entire project. I go to church at Mount Vernon Baptist Church, which is at the intersection of Highway 92 and the South Fulton Parkway, which, as you all know, changes into Capps Ferry as it crosses the river. And, you know, I've got 16 years of devotion to that church. Well, that church 30 years, and the South Fulton Parkway 16 years. I serve as the president of the South Fulton Parkway Alliance. I was on the original formation board for the CID at the Atlanta airport, where you're seeing transformation in that area. And the Parkway is at a pivotal point right now. We've had a lot of good things. We have Chick-fil-A's headquarters, Naturally Fresh, Walmart.com. We've got Serenbe. We've got Fox Hall. And so, you know, this state has built us a new driveway to the world. And, you know, I contemplated, you know, emotionally about this because there's so many people depending on this. It's not just Douglas County. It's all the way from, you know, the other side of the river as well, because if we can do something quality at this point, it will be pivotal for the rest of the parkway. Because let me tell you, if we're not good stewards with what we have, and I understand the different concerns, but I think the experts have explained that, we are going to have a trucking corridor instead of a resort area. And I'm telling y'all, there's million-square-foot facilities popping up everywhere because of some questionable zoning on the other end. It's called town center mixed use, which allows you to do anything from town center mixed use to warehousing. So I'm very concerned that if we don't do something quality here, which I believe wholeheartedly in Fox Hall, I know there's been $58 million of private investment put into that facility. There's not a lot of people that did that during our downturn. So I fully endorse. I am on the Development Authority Board as well, and we looked at this. We scrutinized it. I know our chairperson was very skeptical to begin with, and we used logic. We used HVS to do a feasibility or study of the PKF to do a study of HVS's study. So we've been good stewards trying to protect Douglas County and the money there, but I really wish that or hope that you will consider this in a positive manner, and appreciate each and every one of you for your service to our county. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Byers. We appreciate you coming in today, expressing your opinion, and also and your concerns as well. So thank you so much. Professor Tomasky, you're next. Would you please come forth and state your address, and your subject matter also is Fox Hall Development. If you could.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good morning to all.
Good morning.
John Tomasky, 6000 Stewart Parkway, Douglasville. I refer at this time to the remarks by the self-described old lady to whom I acknowledged yesterday. And among the remarks she made was that residents haven't been able to get sewer down in that part of the county. But when this project comes along, not only is WSA on board for that, but we're talking now about the public being involved in the bonds that would help develop this infrastructure. Now, it seems to me that if residents, as county residents, and for the most part, net taxpayers, as distinguished from net tax beneficiaries, cannot get WSA's attention, if we're going to do anything along those lines, well, what about impact fees? That's why God created them. But you never hear about impact fees. And most states of the union have impact fee legislation. And in fact, Georgia provides for either of two formulas for impact fees, where most states just offer one or the other. And if we're going to hear from time to time about running government as a business, what business is going to take on other entities' risks and for no compensation? They want to piggyback on your credit in exchange for what? For the right to get a tax abatement? You're going to pay for them to ride on your credit? That's running government like a business, which the private sector advocates? Well, I don't understand these anomalies. And I suggest that the item of the bond issue not be approved by this board. The following item, as to an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement, without a specific amendment, I couldn't say whether to go along with it or not, because there are certainly amendments to that agreement that ought to be made that may not have been considered. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Tomasky. We appreciate you coming in as well, expressing your opinion and your concern. Last but not least, we have Mr. Larry Pierce. Mr. Pierce, could you please come forth and give us your address? I noticed that you didn't have it noted on this document. And also, your subject matter is Foxhall.
Larry Pierce, 4120 Van Sant Road, Douglasville, Georgia. A couple of weeks ago, Judge McClain said to me, "Mr. Pierce, you're in front of me to try to change my mind." Now, Mr. Baggett here has been around a long time, and I heard him say a couple interesting things. So you should never really have your mind made up. Now, the thing about it is that I think some of us, including myself, only understand things when it comes to money or where it's going. But on March 20th of 2017, the board approved an issue with Mr. Joe Fowler, but it was for the citizens. It was regarding residential housing and to issue bonds to finance the facilities on Brown Street. And it was approved. But that was for the citizens. Now, if there's some benefits here, it's beyond my head. And he, being in the committee, he hears many things as y'all should be having. So all we're really concerned about is that for 30 years there's going to be a bond. Now, I remember Earl Lee taking me around to the jail 40 years ago, and he said, we're never going to need another jail in my lifetime. Well, he was right. Earl Lee's been dead for 20 years, and the jail is now coming down. We're not going to be here in 30 years. I'll guarantee you 90% of us is going to be gone in 30 years. So the decision you make now holds true to what's going to occur. A lot of things around Georgia happen. I was living in Adairsville when a multimillionaire from Germany came flying over in his helicopter, and he landed at Barnsley Gardens. And they told all the poor little citizens in Adairsville, we're going to have a great thing here. It was owned by a tycoon magnate from Civil War, and they did make a nice little place to get married and have a golf course. There's always a magic word, golf course. And I don't know how many people play golf, but now there's a law, you got to have a wheelchair to play it, and they let them play. So all I'm saying is that he's made some good points. Y'all have good points. And let's just make sure that Foxhall is not the fox in sheep's clothing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pierce. We appreciate your opinion as well, and we appreciate you coming in, expressing your concerns. Well, Board of Commissioners, we'll move on next to our approval of the minutes. Board of Commissioners, you have the commission meeting minutes of May 21st, 2019, the work session minutes of May 20th, 2019, the executive session minutes of May 20th, 2019. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions that need to be made?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay, being none, the minutes stand as presented, stand approved as presented. Next, we have a proclamation, our proclamation, which is tab number 4, proclaiming June 8th, 2019 as Family Health and Fitness Day in Douglas County. And we will have our own director, Gary Dukes, for Parks and Recreation, and also Chad Griffin here, who's the manager, I believe, well, of our Parks and Recreation as well. So they're both here to read this proclamation. And thank you so much, Director Dukes. You have the floor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, ma'am. The National Recreation and Park Society deemed June the 8th as Family Health and Fitness Day throughout the nation. And I have Chad here to read the proclamation, and he'll also tell you a little bit about the free programs that we're going to offer on June the 8th down at the Aquatic Center.
Thank you. Chad, thank you.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
Good morning.
Thank you. Commissioners, Chairman, thank you for having the Parks and Recreation Department here today to announce this day. We're here to talk about the Family Health and Fitness Day. This day is recognized by the National Recreation and Park Association, and it's an effort to get the families in the county or in the city out to your Parks and Rec and support your Parks and Rec. So on June the 8th at Boundary Waters Aquatic Center, we're going to host a Family Fun and Fitness Day. And we're going to have free swim lessons for youth and adults. We're going to offer a Aqua Zumba class for the citizens. And we also have asked that they come out and just enjoy our parks. The amenities at Boundary Waters, our walking trails, our playgrounds, our ball fields. Just come out and enjoy the day. And right now I'd like to read the proclamation. Family Health and Fitness Day will be June 8th, 2019. Whereas Parks and Recreation is vital to the health and wellness of communities across the country, including Douglas County, Georgia, and whereas Parks and Recreation provides inclusive spaces where people of all ages and abilities can focus on health and wellness and physical activity. And whereas living close to parks and recreation facilities is consistently related to higher physical activity levels for both adults and youth. Whereas parks provide a connection to nature, which studies demonstrate relieves stress, tightens interpersonal relationships, and improves mental health. Whereas Douglas County, Georgia recognizes the health benefits derived from parks and recreation programs and activities. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Douglas County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim that June 8th, 2019 is recognized as Family Health and Fitness Day in Douglas County, Georgia, and encourages all citizens to celebrate this day by participating in activities and programs in their local parks and recreation centers.
Thank you so much, Chad. That was absolutely wonderful. Thank you for recognizing Family Health and Fitness Day here in Douglas County. That sounds very refreshing. I will like to I will stop by to say hello and
Please do.
and participate in some of the events. Board of Commissioners, you have heard the proclamation. Do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? We have a motion and a second. Please prepare to cast your votes. We have a 5-0 unanimous vote, and the motion carries, so thank you so much. We're so proud. Would you like to come up and take a photograph with this? Or unless you have somebody else with you? You and both of y'all, if you could come up, Director Dukes and also Chad.
Thank you.
Please. Once again, thank you, Director Dukes, and also Chad, for recognizing Family Health and Fitness Day in Douglas County. And we look so forward to all the exciting things that are coming down the pike. Board of Commissioners, next we have new business before us. Tab number 5 is a resolution authorizing a 90-day temporary moratorium on the acceptance of applications for review of rezoning for and acceptance of development plans and issuance of development and building permits for rock quarries and related uses. All right, Board of Commissioners, we have our own Ron Roberts here to tell us a little bit about this resolution. If you could please proceed.
Yes, Madam Chair. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, so this is to put in place a 90-day moratorium on the quarries. We want to take a look at Section 342 a little bit further and see if we can make some modifications to that. We'd like some time to do it, and this will give us the pathway to do that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
All right, Board of Commissioners, you have heard this resolution. Do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion about this resolution?
Madam Chair?
Vice Chairman Robinson.
Yeah, can you bring Ron Roberts back up, Madam Chair?
Ron Roberts, okay,
Please.
please.
You just thought you could get away.
Yeah, can you do it that easy?
Yes, Commissioner.
Just need a little bit more clarity, though. When I hear the word moratorium, I just want to, for the sake of, and I understand you want to buy time, but I need a little bit more specific. You quoted a code section, but what does that mean for the citizens? What are we really doing?
What are we really doing? We'll not take applications or review rezonings that are related to quarry or the use of quarries for 90 days if this is approved.
Is 90 days sufficient? And where I'm going with that, to study me, what is going to be your methodology and approach to doing this? Are you hiring a consultant? Is this an ask for money? I mean,
Yes,
I'm
Commissioner.
trying
We're already engaged with legal counsel. They're actually looking at Section 342, same group that looked at it last year. We are wanting to. I'm not really sure what the issue is, to be honest with you. So we just want to take some extra time to actually go through it, dig a little deeper, and see if what modifications need to be made.
And again, so you're clarifying, so we put a stop on all considerations for 90 days.
That's
You
correct.
have a third-party service provider that's going to provide you with counsel. Is there a cost associated with that, or is that already on the books? I'm trying to get to a point, how will you get there? So is this through our legal counsel, or is this somebody else? I need a little bit more clarity.
Yes.
Ron, why
So,
don't you let me do it
Sure.
before you get stomped on a little bit here?
That's fine.
Because I'm, Commissioner Robinson, this came from the legal department at our request because we have reviewed and vetted the current ordinance that's in place and discussed it with our outside folks, and we believe there might be some necessary changes. And what you don't want to do is be accepting applications while you're in the process of contemplating a change to your current ordinance. This does not mean an ordinance revision will take place. We will bring from the legal department with Ron and his staff's vetting some recommendations, and if the board chooses to implement those, then new application will be taken after that time. The 90 days, but more than anything, is the law doesn't allow you to have an indefinite moratorium, and so we did not want to have a long period of time. This will expire by its very nature if you amend the ordinance before the 90 days, or the 90 days runs, if I remember correctly, Ron. That's the last paragraph, if I remember, is it not?
that's correct.
Let me just make sure so I'm saying the right thing before we jump the gun.
90 days from the adoption of this moratorium shall be repealed.
In the event recommendations are made and changes are adopted less than 90 days from the adoption of the moratorium shall be repealed by such adoption. So we're saying no more than 90 days. If there is a problem with that time frame, legal will come back to y'all and ask for an extension. I don't believe it's going to need to be extended because we've already been in vetting process for some time. This is just so we don't put applicants in jeopardy of what law applies to their application. We also don't want a staff expending time reviewing something under one ordinance that's in the process of being revised. So that's the basis. And Ron, I'm sorry, I kind of put Ron in the spot for me, but we're the ones that requested it.
I got it. Thank you. All right, I'm good, Madam Chair. I yield back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Commissioner Guider, I believe you have a comment.
Yes, and I want to put in plain language what Kenny Bernard just said. Anything that comes from the legal department as a recommendation still has to be voted on by this entire board. And the request for the moratorium came from the legal department because they wanted to vet more this part of the ordinance regarding quarries. And we know, I mean, there's some legal things going on about a potential site. So we need to be careful that we don't back ourselves into a corner, so to speak. And so, but even if it comes down to the point where there's recommendations from the legal side, it still has to be approved by this board. We're not saying we're going to change the ordinance. We're going to look at it further and vet it more to make sure that it would stand up in court. So I just want to make sure that the public understands that anything that gets changed or is not changed will be determined by this Board of Commissioners. And I yield back.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Guider. Any other discussion? Okay. Okay, I'm going to call the question. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
All right. Board of Commissioners, you have heard the resolutions and all the defining information. Do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. Please prepare to cast your votes. Clerk, I believe we're having some.
It went away.
technical-
So it's not just
Oh,
me.
now we see it. Thank you so much.
It's not just you.
I don't have.
You have it, it's right there.
Hold on. Now we got it.
We have a 5-0 unanimous vote, and the motion carries. So thank you so much, Board of Commissioners. We'll move on to tab number 8, which is our tab number 6, which is our next item of the new business. Authorization for the chairman to execute a part-time contract for Deputy Coroner Chantel Fleming. Board of Commissioners, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Guider.
Kenny, would you define part-time over contracted employee? What's the difference?
I'm sorry.
What is the difference between a part-time employee and a contracted employee? Yes, sir.
That's a good question. Non-merit, part-time employees are non-merit system employees. The reason why legal has recommended for all part-time employees to try to have a contract, especially when they're housed in other elected officials' offices, is one, to comply with local legislation that's passed related to the coroner's office, but also to ensure that the hiree understands what rights and benefits they have and don't have, including their non-merit, non-benefit. They simply are paid on a per diem. The proposed contract in front of you is the same one that we've been passing for deputies for some period of time that y'all have approved, and it's just simply to make sure administratively the paperwork is correct. You do not have the ability to select who the coroner hires. You do have the ability to ensure that the proper administration of the human resources paperwork is done correctly. And at Fred Perry, and I think Fred may not be here today, but at Fred's request, at legal's request, we'd like to have uniformity in that department related to hirees. So I don't think the distinction is whether it's part-time or contract. I think the distinction is what does the contract say, and this says the same thing it says for all the other deputies since this administration's been in office.
Well, a couple of years ago, up until that time, the deputies were paid by per diem, like you say, but they were not paid the matched Social Security and things like that. And could Jennifer Hallman come up and say why we had to divert to the fee system that we'd been paying for years?
I think I'm probably in a better position than Jennifer, although Jennifer
Okay.
can probably get close if she needs to. We're going to walk through the science of this, which is a combination of both state law, it's a combination of both local legislation that applies to this particular office. State law sets per diems typically for coroners and deputies. Local legislation that was passed some time ago before this administration set salaries for the coroner and the deputy coroners. State law allows the coroner to select whether or not they're paid pursuant to the per diem or the salary, and that's primarily so that in rural counties that they get paid appropriately. So Georgia set minimums on per diems. This board, under the local legislation, has the authority to approve all third-party contracts of the coroner. This board also, under home rule under the Constitution, has the ability to supplement or support elected offices as it deems appropriate. This board has allowed the deputy coroners to select between the salary provided in the local legislation or the per diem at their election, and that's why we have suggested that it be reduced to written form. If they don't get paid pursuant to the per diem, they get paid only pursuant to local legislation. So that's the history of where we are and why we're here.
Well, they get paid per diem, but they also get the benefits on top of that, the Social Security, matched Social Security, instead of getting a 1099 at the end of the year.
Well, I can't address.
And I don't know how we.
I don't know that per diem people get Social Security withheld, but maybe Jennifer Hallman can address that.
Yes, they are ran through the payroll system,
Yes.
And because it is considered for IRS purposes, the difference between an employee versus a contractor is the type of what they call a control that you have over them, meaning that you dictate the hours they work or the calls, in this case, that they would go on. The prior, before 2016, it was done, you are correct, it was done through accounts payable. We were actually paying a company. Bill could go in a little bit more detail on that if you want to. But we're doing it correctly now, where we're actually paying a person that's considered an employee through the payroll system. Anytime anybody's paid through payroll, regardless if it's paid by per diem, part-time, full-time, then you have to pay the Social Security and Medicare. That's something that the coroner doesn't even have control over. That's something that we have to go by.
So you're saying IRS requires that we pay them as an employee?
Yes, ma'am.
Rather than a company. I know we contract with companies all the time, you know, the people that clean the courthouse and things like that. So,
But because these are actually people, not companies,
but they have companies of their own.
but they're being paid as the person, as the deputy coroners in this particular case.
I think we have one now that's still a company, but we'll go.
Yeah, not to my
around
knowledge
that. But I just wondered how we ever got to the point where we were paying them per diem, per the state law. When you say per diem, it's really
Per investigation,
episode,
per
project,
transport.
Per investigation or per transport. There's a different fee for each one. And so I just wondered, how did we ever go to where we have to now match their Social Security and everything, rather than giving them a 1099 at the end of the year?
Because they are considered an employee for IRS purposes.
And that's required?
That is required.
So no county has a company that works as a deputy?
I don't know about other counties. I just know with Douglas County, we are paying people, not companies.
Okay. This is nothing against this young lady that we came before us yesterday. I just wondered why we ever switched, because it's costing the county more than the fee, rather than just the fee that's set by state law. Mm-hmm. And it's the budget keeps, running over and everything. So with that, I yield back.
Okay, thank you so much. Any other comment from the
Madam
Board of
Chair.
Commissioners? Commissioner Robinson,
Yeah,
Vice Chairman.
two separate things, because this is easily, it's slidden politically in a certain direction that you didn't have to, just because the past was the past doesn't mean it has to be maintained in the future, right? Rules change, interpretation, whether you choose to enforce something or not enforce something. We have that from procurement to you name it, where it's like, okay, we apply the rules conveniently. I think to that point where things that went on in the past was sort of just, I won't say it was a blind's eye, but it was just sort of, it was the way of life. Right? So now all of a sudden, this new scrutiny, this new like, okay, why are we doing it this way? It's because either we should be doing it that way, or because we made a decision to change it. Right? But I'm listening to this, and it got politicized. Like, look, we're just trying to, somebody needs to provide services to the public. Providing a tough service. If you think about what a coroner does, do you know what a coroner does? A deputy coroner. The process they have to do, and it's like, it was sort of made like the bully of all functions you want to go after. Really? Somewhat embarrassing to me. It's like, really, that's the best you have? You're going to pick on the coroner that has to go out there? It ain't the convenient stuff you see on Dateline and stuff like that. Like, no. Do you get what they do? And I'm not getting the dignity and respect that should be offered, right? We're treating it, and I won't say how it's being treated. Not just listening to this week, I was just like, okay, it gets old. I get the administrative process that let's make sure it's cleaned up. County administrator, your staff, I'll just leave it at that, nobody in particular. Let's make sure everything's aligned legally, financially, all those things. Let's bring it into alignment. But it's sometimes these topics get hijacked, and then if you listen, you can hear sort of the messaging that's being said. And I want to make sure that there's a balance about what's going on, right? I do appreciate, like, we're always giving thanks to everybody else, all of our first responders. Okay, well, let's talk to the person that's the last person on the scene. I want to thank them for what they do, right? And maybe some of you haven't been through that process before. You perhaps will in your lifetime. When I lost my father, right? And while I had to deal with a medical examiner, I get still versus a coroner. It's all relative, right? And so this is important that if we can be balanced in our narrative, not so pointed, and a lot of times when I hear the commentary, and I appreciate what Madam Gosh just said, it wasn't against this person, but because this is the topic, it gets personal, and it gets polarized in a way that people are coming to work, right? They got to take care of their families. I appreciate the First Amendment, but it's like there's something about decency in America that needs to be balanced, right? Like, chill that out, right? You can make your point and be educated about it, but some of it is just, it's mean. It's not in the right spirit. It doesn't reflect Douglas County. The very thing that I hear sometimes they say, we're all about, like, no, that's not Douglas. So this is a topic that's off the record, but I think it's something that I'm sure I'm comfortable with this and moving forward. I just had to address that administratively. If something needs to be aligned it, but it's just a narrative that I sometimes, it disturbs me. I yield back.
Thank you so much, Vice Chairman Robinson. And I just had one comment for you, or just one question. I heard Mrs. Hallman, you mentioned that you said we're doing it correctly now. Is that correct is it based on the Internal Revenue Services? Is that
That
their
is
law?
correct.
Is that a law based on?
Yes,
Okay, I just
that
want to
is
make sure
correct.
that we are doing it correct.
Yes,
And it
ma'am.
sounds like you're saying previous to that, we were doing it not quite right.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I needed to hear. All right. Commissioner Carthen has a question for you.
I do.
Thank you.
So, I don't know if you can answer this, Jennifer. So, anytime a part-time or full-time employee is hired by any department, they come before us?
No, I believe that would be, I think this is because of the legislation,
This is
which I
simply
think Ken would be.
Yeah, and I think Mark can address it. I do not think that every employee of the county comes in front of us. They go to Human Resource, and Mark can address that.
Yeah, that's correct. Every employee does not. These are contract employees. So any contract, part-time, full-time, grant-funded, any contract has to have approval from the Board of Commissioners.
Including Sheriff's Department, Tax Commissioner?
Everybody who's on contract, yes.
Everybody
Yeah,
who's on contract.
and let me add a caveat to that, since we're talking about the sheriff and we're talking about the tax commissioner, constitutional officers. In those positions, the sheriff has the ability to do certain things without your approval, but they, out of comity and working with this board because of a funding partner, they work with you. We don't get involved in their individual hires, but when they change their structures, they typically have talked to y'all about those structures so y'all can plan. So it's really a comedy of, and I mean not comedy funny, but working together so that the funding partner and the sheriff are on the same sheet of music, just like the tax commissioner and this board, you're a funding partner. For this particular office, and there's not a lot of difference between constitutional officers other than and statutory officers. One's governed by the Constitution, the other are governed by laws that change all the time. The Constitution rarely gets changed. But there is a little bit of autonomy with constitutional officers that are separate from elected officers. The difference with the coroner's office is the coroner's office is a complete statutory creation that changes, and because when the legislature were putting it together, they were dealing with very rural places couldn't get a coroner versus places that are very suburban. And so what has happened over a period of time, you've got laws that are sort of archaic because it's applying to the general Georgia as opposed to metropolitan Atlanta or everywhere else. So what has happened over a period of time is local legislation has supplemented state law, and under home rule, under the Constitution, which gives this board broad authority to support elected officers however you deem fit, as long as it's done publicly. Y'all given whatever y'all have given. The contractual provisions in here are because these people are part-time and Human Resource wants to make sure that their pay is set up. Are they under the local legislation or are they under a contract per diem this sets the per diem. So, and I want to point out one thing, this Jennifer, I want to say a prior administration got audited by the IRS, and employment classification for the Department of Labor is different than employment classification for the IRS. The IRS imposition is one thing, but that doesn't govern the Georgia Department of Labor or Georgia Statutory Authority for per diems. So we're really talking about two tracks where we got people that are sort of touching both tracks. Her compliance is for audit purposes. She must comply with the IRS regulations. Otherwise, they can come in, audit you, fine you, and impose their will on you. But for employment purposes, it's a totally different thing. And I just want to make sure that point's clear.
I yield.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Carthen. Okay, all right, thank you so much, Mrs. Hallman, for being here, Director Hallman, should I say. Okay, Board of Commissioners, we have a motion and a second. Please prepare to cast your votes. We have a 5-0 unanimous vote, and the motion carries. All right, Board of Commissioners, we'll move to our business items. We just finished our new business, and we'll move on to our business items, which is tab number 7. Tab number 7 is authorization to approve the guarantee of the regional infrastructure bonds for the Foxhall project. Do we have a motion to approve, to authorize this approval? Okay. Let me try one more time. Tab number 7, authorization to approve the guarantee of the regional infrastructure bonds for the Foxhall project. Do I have a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, the chair can take motions of any kind, irrespective of the agenda's reading.
Madam, point of order?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, let's, maybe I'll help out here. Let's, maybe this board might look at this and decide something a little bit differently, because it appears that what we're looking at now is not looking very positive. Would this board consider a motion of removing this item from the agenda and, go back and look at what kind of work or and keep the 2016, if I'm correct, and what was on the table that's already exists? Am I correct, the 2016?
Yeah, the 2016
Okay,
is,
all right.
yeah, this is,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, so just remove that item, and I would also, and I don't want to get ahead of you, Madam Chair, but I would even say the same thing for 7 and 8, to just remove from the agenda and take no action on those items and move forward. So that would be a motion I would present to this board. I don't know, and you'll take it from there, Madam Chair.
Discussion.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And again, this is a business item, and we're making this officially of the record. I think this is important so that the public, the press, is not confused about what's happening here. Over the past almost month and a half, the Board of Commissioners has given consideration to the Foxhall project. It got broken in 2 components. One was guaranteeing the infrastructure, and I'm going to leave that here for this decision because that's where we are. We'll come back to the next one in a minute. Through this process, we looked at both, sort of legal and financial implications. And at this point, the Board of Commissioners has asked, are we going to guarantee, or somebody said co-sign, the signature line, I like that signature, for these bonds. The Board of Commissioners went through a work session yesterday regarding this, and certain positions were expressed as it relates to leaning. There was no vote. Madam Chair, I'm of the position that we don't guarantee these bonds. I'm okay with a calling of the vote because I'm not for ever guaranteeing bonds for investment purposes. So I want to clear that up. If there's some desire to consider support later, I'm fine. But I mean, so I don't want to send a message to the public that I would support. I'm okay with the board does. But guaranteeing bonds, and this is important, The original proposition asked us to guarantee the whole project, which was $160 million, which is equivalent of the jail and equivalent of the current bond we have for our SPLOST. I'm very sensitive of using our credit to support stuff. It's independent. I'm okay with making a decision saying we're just not going to guarantee these bonds, but if the Board of Commissioners likes to take up in committee, Madam Chair, at your request, send this into Transportation Committee for us to look at a recommendation on how we will deal with regional infrastructure along Caps Ferry. I do not support coming on somebody's private property to put in a public road, right? So I want to clarify. We spent money. We're at a place where I don't need more time. I'm clear on that part. Take it off the table. Make a decision. I mean, the public also, while I'm sensitive to the private sector, the public sector also expects us to make a decision from time to time. Take a position, right? For the public, this is important. See, conversations, we have our meetings, everything is codified, there's no closed doors, but we have conversations. There's email threads, all of that. So, but you only get the in-between, right? So it's important that we clarify where this is right now. And so and Madam Chair, I'm okay if you choose to take it off, but I want to be clear that we at least take some action through your administration to look at how we will open up the Western Corridor. Has nothing to do with Foxhall. Open up the corridor, whatever we need to do as far as timeline and dollars are concerned. I think I'm okay with that as an action item. But as far as actually guaranteeing bonds, take a position to say, no, that's what was asked. If y'all choose to take it off from even voting, it still opens the door for them to come back and ask again. We told them no last time. They came back. And so it's like, you've got right now, and this is important, which you'll get to the next point, you have this open-ended, there's no sunset on this thing. So the 2016 was passed in such a way, they can come back forever. Forever. And unfortunately, that wasn't there. So unless we can put a sunset clause in this, I'm pretty much, I'm done. I yield.
Okay, thank you so much. Vice Chairman Robinson, of course, I appreciate your input, and I also thank you, Commissioner Mitchell, for just with your suggestion as well. However, Commissioner, or should I say Vice Chairman Robinson, opening the Western Corridor is a discussion for another day. I have something else at the table. I'm focusing on Foxhall today, and I'm calling the question, and I'll call it again, but I really want to move down the path. We've been talking about this a long time, redundantly, and we just need to be very fair to the citizens of Douglas County, and it's only just fair. As the chairman of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners, I have been very transparent that I fully support smart economic development in parallel with a robust workforce development program. Certainly, this request coming before us, I'm confident that whatever the outcome renders, this Board of Commissioners, we will take a position, and we have taken with due diligence, and we have fully vetted, we've researched this project, we've analyzed it from both financial and a legal perspective. And I just want us to stand up and do the right thing, whatever you feel is appropriate, and we need to vote. So with no further ado, again, I'm going to ask the question. I'll call the question, and we can move forward. Just if you call it, if you second, if you motion, if someone want to call the motion, and then once you get a second, that does not mean that you approve or disapprove. That just allows us to discuss it further and move with the consideration. So I don't want my board to be afraid to do that, because that does not give the message or send the message that you are for or against. It's just that it allows it to move further so we could generate some discussion.
Madam Chair, just point of order.
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Just first, just want to make sure you understood that I did make a motion, so there's a motion on the floor.
Okay.
There's not a second. First. Second of all, as stated by Vice Chair Robinson, I too totally agree with what he stated about the bonds. But however, my thoughts were just trying to not move this item in the direction of approval, but more or less give the business economic side of this an opportunity to possibly look at whether it's a sunset clause or anything else that may come along with this, that they'll have at least the opportunity to kind of find something that's applicable for this particular board. Not that this direction of going with the agreement that stated about the bond approval, absolutely not. So with that, that's why the motion was made to remove this item, for them to go back and do even more homework and come back with whatever that may or may not be. That doesn't mean that we agree or disagree. I just think it just needs some more time. I think the project, if you believe in it, it needs more time. If you don't, and if you cast a vote today, I'm okay with that as well. But my motion was to remove item 7, and if you want to go to item 8, but I know it's your agenda, Madam Chair, but I would suggest and recommend that we remove both items and look at this, whether it's in 3 months, 6 months, or whatever, and don't know what the item will come back to be. I'm not telling what the item, I don't even know what it would turn around to be. I'm only saying just remove it from not placing it on the table, remove it from the agenda. That's my motion, and I'll leave it at that. I'll yield back.
Okay, Commissioner Mitchell has a motion.
Madam Chair, just for clarity with the clerks down here, the motion we have is a motion to remove items 7 and 8 with a second. If you're going to consider individual motions, you'd have to defeat that motion and then take them up one at a time. That's what we understand the motion to be.
Do we have a second on the motion?
We don't have a second?
We don't, okay.
So if it doesn't get a second, it would die, and then you go into
Okay.
individual vote on 7 and 8.
That is correct.
Okay, do we have, I'm going to start with, do we have a motion to remove 7 and 8 from this agenda today? Do we have a motion to remove it?
That is my motion.
Okay, but
You
do we
look
have
for
a second?
Right.
Madam
Okay,
Chair,
it dies for lack of a second. We
Okay.
don't have a second, okay? So it dies because of lack of a second. Okay. Any other motions? Commissioner Guider?
Yes. We've talked about this for how many years? We've hired consultants. I wish I was a consultant in this day and time. But we were told, and there was a letter from the Development Authority last time, we're not going to come back with another plan, and here you are again. I would like to make the motion to not approve, to guarantee the regional infrastructure bonds for the Foxhall project.
Okay.
And I make to not approve the
Deny. You wanna just say
infrastructure bonds.
It's easier to say deny.
Second.
Deny, is that what you said?
To deny, okay.
and deny item 7. Is that what the motion?
I'd like to make a motion to deny guaranteeing the regional infrastructure bonds for Foxhall project.
Second. I'm clear on what she asked.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Vice Chairman Robinson.
Again, we're talking about the guarantee, which is basically using our credits to support our private sector venture. The key word is guarantee. I support regional infrastructure. The county is responsible for infrastructure along with our water sewer authority, septic, water, stormwater, roads. We're responsible. And I believe, again, that's an action item that could come out of this. And so that's important. It's not to do something. But that being said, I stand behind my second for us not to guarantee these bonds. That's it.
Okay. We have a motion. Any other discussion from the Board of Commissioners? We have a motion and a second to deny the guarantee of the regional infrastructure bonds for the Foxhall project. Please prepare to cast your vote.
Madam Chair, you're going to need a hand vote on this one because of the way the agenda item reads.
Okay. Please indicate your vote if you'd authorize to deny the guarantee of the regional infrastructure bonds for the Foxhall. Please indicate by raising your right hand. Okay, it's a 5-0 unanimous vote, and the motion carries, okay, to deny. All right, we'll move on to the next item. Tab number 8, authorization to approve an amendment to the 2016 intergovernmental agreement for the Foxhall project and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Board of Commissioners, do we have an authorization to approve the amendment to the 2016 intergovernmental agreement for the Foxhall project? We do not have any motions. Okay. Okay, I'll try that one more time, and then we'll do the motion, okay? Board of Commissioners, do we have authorization to approve an amendment to the 2016 intergovernmental agreement for the Foxhall project and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents?
Madam Chair, point of-
Vice Chair,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Robinson.
Just for a point of clarity, point of clarity, as we take this up, again, for the public record, because they're sitting here listening to us go through stuff, and they're like, okay, what's really happening? The last one, agenda item, was pretty simple. It was about guaranteeing bonds. This one represents a set of requests or amendments to a previous made decision by the Board of Commissioners for this development. And so with that, some are more serious than others for the most part. So this is sort of a package consideration, and this is up or down. And so here's where, may I continue? I just want, okay, all right, thank you. And so for me, it simply, again, I'm just one vote. But it comes down to, and I appreciate Commissioner Mitchell, and I give time. But this has been through 2 administrations, and I appreciate the perseverance of the entrepreneur. I appreciate the spirit of it. That's what it's all about, right? You hang in there. Hang in there. But there's a balancing act between private sector and public sector, right? When we were approached, this is important, when we were approached in Finance Committee about bringing this forward, we were asked to make a decision in one day. I said, there's no way, right? When you approach the Board of Commissioners, you have to be shovel ready. This is important. This is an important message. Like, you can't play with the moment. You got to know that what you're asking us for, and it's not about the Board of Commissioners making a decision. The question is always, is the other side ready? I get the ask, but are you ready? Right? So there's a balancing act here. So I want to make sure that, you know, we're sitting here and we're having this an internal conversation, but it's like, no, this is important. When you ask us to put it on the agenda and you come before us, be ready. We're held to the same standard. Be ready. That being said, on this one, it comes down simply, if we deny this, and I want to clarify this, if we deny this, because there is no sunset clause in the 2016 agreement, they can keep coming back, and keep coming back, and keep coming back. Right? It's just what it was. Now, I won't get into the legal or any of that, like why was there not a sunset clause? But it'll keep coming back. Let's clarify that for the public so they won't say, why do y'all keep considering? Because they have rights that were codified. So sometimes you got to just say it. This is what it is. And so now, all right, so now how do we move through the moment? I mean, again, my biggest issue regarding this particular one was really the 99-year lease. All right, that was really my issue. I get why they're asking for it. Again, you've got a conference center, you've got a hotel. I mean, I get it. It really has to do with financing on their side. It's for their benefit. But at the end of the day, this was always about the exchange. We're doing so much to accommodate their request, but I'm still sitting here, but nothing fundamentally has changed about what we get out of it. I'm not negotiating against myself. I don't have to convince myself. And so this is that serious. This is, you know, you have to pay attention to what we're saying. We shouldn't have to go through all this, right? When I look at the exchange, and we're sitting here, right, they're taking all the hotel motel tax, all the ad valorem, and I'm okay, but don't make me think that I should feel okay about it. But I have to go through some type of extreme, like, okay, no, I know what I'm giving up. Right? So it's a respect that says it goes both ways. Like, okay, I know it's going to be a catalyst. Thank you, Mr. Baggett. I get it. Thank you, Mr. Byers. I get it. But it's how you approach it that says, okay, but don't you hear what the citizens are saying? Right? Should the Board of Commissioners have some say I mean, and again, I get it, but where's the partnership in this? And we're doing so much to accommodate them to get there, but when do I see our voice in there? Right, so I would like to see the sunset clause. So on this one right now, and again, I don't know how we're going to get through this moment, but that's like the 99-year for sunset clause. You got 120 days to close, but that's it. Don't play with this, but this has been expressed. All right, I give you the lease, 99 years. You got 120 days. When you're asking me, when yesterday it was pointed out in public, this is important, that we will have some type of, financing in play by the end of the month. I'm with that. All right, you got what? You're 30 days into this now. You're asking for another 30 days. Give it, another 90 to 120 days to close. All right. We can't keep going on with this one. Because part of it is that there was so much pressure on the Board of Commissioners to commit taxpayer dollars. And we had to get our minds around this. This wasn't easy. The time and effort I had to take to get into this thing, doing an investment banker job to reverse engineer what they're positioning to us. And it's like, no, you don't get to get off the hook that easy. That's the part that's sort of like, no. What we had to do to expend to get to this place, and I get it, but I'm just saying, okay, for that exchange, and I appreciate what Madam Carthen has brought out, I'd support the 99-year lease just for the sake, with that sunset clause in there, pay attention, sunset clause, and again, you've got 120 days from this decision to close. You've been saying, hurry up, get it together, get it to the Board of Commissioners, but like, okay, but have you done your part? It's a partnership. I know how fast we can go to market. The question is, you came to us, so I'm like, okay, if we're getting married, are you ready? And that's what this is. Let's not toil with this. I just want to be honest so that the public can hear our side. Says, look, we're for economic development. We're for all these things that we're about, but please don't put us in this place. Right? Because again, when we go silent, because if it gets taken off in the dark, the public's like, okay, what didn't happen? We hear all this, okay, what happened to the conversation? It's like, no, I'm not going out like that. It's in the forefront. So that being said, I'm going to yield back. That's my point.
Okay, thank you so much. I believe Commissioner Guido, you have a comment.
Yes, to the Development Authority. In 2016, y'all know I voted against this. It was not because I was against Foxhall building a hotel down there. I was against it because it was 100% of tax abatement for 30 years. We don't have such things as that in Douglas County. We never have. And now this was something special because it was supposed to bring in a corporate park. It was supposed to bring in the University of Georgia. That was sold to the school board. That's why they signed off on it. And if you read their little resolution, that's what they said. Y'all gonna bring in all that. That was speculation. That was hypothetical. It was dreaming that this was gonna happen. I'm not saying it wouldn't have happened, but it's a lot for us to put a huge investment of 30 years of taxes, 100% taxes, and now, but I have listened to y'all very carefully, and I've studied it very carefully. I met with Mr. Hedge just yesterday and some others about it, and the 99-year lease, but it's from the Development Authority. The only reason it was going to be why not convey it over to them after the end of 30 years? Because you wanted to keep it tax exempt for another 70 years. That was the only purpose. Now, the maintenance of the conference center was to be consumed by the Westin, the hotel and everything. But what if, 100 years from now, the building may need to be torn down and rebuilt? Who was going to do that? The county? The Development Authority? Y'all are not elected officials. You are appointed officials, and you are an arm of this elected board. And why would I want to give you or any authority the right to hold a lease? Y'all aren't going to be there in 30 years. Who knows who's going to be on that board if it's still around in 30 years? They could say, well, we're going to lease it to them for $1 for every year. So, you know, I just think y'all are asking for too much authority, even though you are a very important board here. I'm not saying that. But you're not elected. You're not accountable to the public like we are, or whoever's up here. And so, with that, we don't even know what's going to be down there in 30 years from now. And I had suggested at the beginning, why don't you go for a TAD, which is a tax anticipated district, where if all this that you said was going to come, it would pay for all that infrastructure. But you didn't have enough faith that that would happen, so you didn't go with a TAD. So you're asking this board to give you something that none of us is going to be around after the end of 30 years, and certainly not after 100 years. The 100 years. Too much. You just ask for too much. The place, the Foxhall is beautiful down there. Absolutely beautiful, and there is a purpose for that area. I understand that. You can build your hotel. Just don't rely on the government to do all the, not only were we abating the taxes for 30 years, we were taking tax dollars and paying the note off for you. So you had your cake and you're eating it too. So I'm just saying you just ask way too much. And, but I do not agree with amending it for, especially because of that 99-year lease. But I did listen to you, and I did go home and I studied that. But still, the only purpose of it remaining in the Development Authority's name after 30 years was to tax exempt it for another 70 years, because you are an arm of the government. So with that, I yield back.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Guider. Any other comment from the Board of Commissioners? Commissioner Mitchell?
Okay, I'll be brief because this is just, it's gotten a little bit long. Okay, so with that being said, because I'm a little, not confused, but I kind of anticipated this with this board. But just my first comment would be, I don't know if Chris, can you come up and at least add just one bit of clarity to this makeup, and then I want to extend the motion, and then I'll hopefully close and we'll call the question, I guess, Madam Mayor. Okay, I mean, Madam Mayor, Madam Chairman. Go ahead.
Yes,
Chris.
sir. Just for clarification purposes, just this past year, you all as a board requested that our state delegation go to the legislature and ask for redevelopment powers in order to have a referendum to pursue a tax allocation district. A tax allocation district is essentially the issuance of a bond for infrastructure, and the bond is basically paid for through future taxes from the private development that takes place within that TAD district. For example, the city of Douglasville is in the process of creating their TAD right now for the downtown area, Fairburn Road, and north of that. And they will be asking you all as a board of commissioners to sign on to that. In essence, what that is when the TAD will basically go to put infrastructure in, and a building will be constructed by the private sector. That building will have a certain tax value, and so they are projecting what that tax value is. That developer will pay that tax, and that tax will in essence come back to a trustee who would then pay the bond, the debt service on that tax. What was approved in the 2016 IGA is basically a synthetic tax allocation district. It is the same function. What we are doing here is issuing bonds for a conference center, and we are projecting that the future tax revenue from the hotel, which would be the private asset, and the conference center, which is always intended that it is a public asset, that the future tax increment from the hotel will be used to pay the debt service on the bond issuance. So it's the same as a tax allocation district. It's increment tax that's coming in to pay the debt service. Within the 2016 IGA, being that the conference center is built with industrial revenue bonds issued by the Development Authority, the Development Authority is the owner of that conference center. In the 2016 IGA, it states that at the end of the 30-year bond, or whenever the bond is retired, that the Development Authority may decide to sell that asset to the private developer at a fair market value. So it is intended that that it is a public asset and is stating as such. Due to the way the financing mechanisms work in working with the traditional lenders, it is not feasible to have that in the IGA, that the conference center is sold back. So what has been requested is that the conference center is thus committed to the operation of the hotel. The conference center can't be successful in and of itself. The hotel can't be successful in and of itself. The two have to be married together. Thus, the lease that is to take place. If at the end of the 30 years in the current structure of the IGA, that there is no way to sell that asset to the lender, then the Development Authority must be the owner of the hotel, or find someone, the owner of the conference center, or find someone to operate it. True, we do not have the funds to do that, but that is what's currently in the 2016 IGA, is that we are the owners of that. What we are looking to do is alleviate that liability, alleviate that cost, alleviate that risk, and commit the conference center. This project will yield $166 million of tax revenue over a 30-year period. 59% of that tax revenue is to be used to pay the debt service on the conference center. The rest of that revenue goes towards the county and the schools. So the deal itself is only structured around the future taxes of the Westin Hotel. That's the ad valorem tax and the hotel motel tax. The villa ad valorem tax is not a part of that. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear in the structure.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. And I just wanted that clarity, and so at least we're understanding kind of what this is. However, with that, and I appreciate it, Chris, that's all I got for you, though. But with that being stated, though, because it sounds as though I'm not sure who wants to make the motion as to where we're going to go with this. And I don't know if I would offer up a motion, but I'm willing to listen to the board as to the direction they would like to go. But if you want to offer up a motion, it would be to actually just deny this item and let these guys go back to the drawing. We'll start there again. However, that would be my motion, is to deny this particular item. And that will be item 8. And maybe if there's a second, we'll move forward. If not, then we'll continue the discussion.
Your motion was to deny the amendment?
Not to approve the item. Yes, that is correct.
Second.
Okay.
Okay.
As item, yeah.
If you could just clarify what was read.
The motion is to deny the amendment to the 2016 intergovernmental agreement.
Well, not to approve it, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, deny.
To deny number 8.
Okay. And we have a second, I believe, from Commissioner Guider. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board? Okay, we have Vice Chairman, I'm sorry, Commissioner Carthen, sorry.
Okay. So I just want to be correct. We are denying this motion to approve it. They will go back to the table and give us something else to approve later. Is that what we are going? If possible, that they can give us something to approve or deny later. Is that?
The motion is to deny number 8.
Okay.
It just goes away. It doesn't stop them at any time in the future from coming back with some other proposal or whatever, which they could do regardless anyway. So what I understand the motion is to deny 8 and be done with this particular agenda item. They could always come back to y'all for something else later if they choose to.
And we can also amend this so that we put a sunset. And I think everybody's clear where I am on the sunset and why I want it,
Right.
so that this doesn't keep coming up. Right.
In addition to other potential legal remedies and discussions with the Development Authority, if any amendment occurs, we would recommend that strongly.
Okay. So I yield from the floor. Just need that clarification.
Okay,
Madam
thank
Chair,
you.
okay.
Vice Chairman Robinson.
All right, so it's a motion to deny with the amendment that there will be a sunset clause in anything that comes back before us. I mean, I want that stated, not just implied through legal. That's stated. In other words, we don't want to see nothing else without a sunset clause. Is that true?
Well, point of order, you can't deny this board or a future board the opportunity to consider anything. What I understand the motion in the second is only to deny item 8 as it is. But there are comments about sunset provisions, but those comments are not part of the pending motion.
All right, so stay with me, but, all right. You just say you've got a set of 10 things here as part of this set of asks, right? Okay. Again, the whole premise is, well, it's conditional. No different than, I need somebody to pay attention, no different than planning and zoning. It's a condition. The condition is these set of things. In other words, well, we'd like to see a sunset clause as part of what comes back. So when you say we can't add it, yes, we can. It's just a condition. And y'all have to go work through that. But I mean, for future boards, but I think what we're saying is that this, in our term, regarding this administration, we'd like to see a sunset. And I'm saying collectively, everybody has to render that. But I support denial of this with the condition that anything else that comes forth has a sunset. That's it. It's a condition.
To add the condition, you need to add an amendment to the pending motion under Robert's Rules of Order.
I did begin with, you said we couldn't do it, so let's try this again.
No, hold on a second.
Let's try this again.
Let me clarify. The motion was to deny item 8. There was a second. In comments, people said they wanted a sunset. Those comments do not form part of the motion unless they are done through a proper amendment. That has not happened.
I'm going to pause.
Okay.
I'm good. I mean, I'm just, well, I've got the floor. I'll finish my point. And you're right. So, there is a motion, there is a second.
Right.
And to get my support, my comments need to be amended in there. But I'm not going to challenge it. I'm going to say, well, you've heard what I just said. So, there's a motion and a second. The comment of sunset is important. And so whoever made the motion, whoever made the second, you can always amend it to include what we just said if you're considering and need our support. That's all I'm saying. So that's amongst us. I'll yield back.
Okay, thank you so much. Did you have one other comment, Commissioner Mitchell, before I call?
I don't, Madam Chair, but I think my other colleague does.
Okay.
So,
Commissioner Carthen?
So what I want to do is amend the motion that is on the floor to include a sunset clause of 120 days.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Legal, is that, I'm just trying to make
Yes,
sure.
you will now vote on the,
Okay.
you
Yes, we
either
have a
discuss
motion.
or vote on the amendment.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we are voting on the amendment. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand and indicate whether you for. Okay, we have a 5-0 unanimous vote to deny the 20, to amend. Is that right?
We're only doing the amendment first. That's
Yeah,
correct.
to amend.
Now, let's see Henry's motion.
Okay, now we'll go back to Commissioner Mitchell's motion.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at something. Have y'all voted on the amendment?
Yes,
The
we did.
amendment's been
Yeah,
approved.
to amend
Now
for
you vote
120 days.
on the primary motion as amended
Okay?
by hand because it's changed.
No, I didn't. You did this time. I didn't do everything. I was
It's two
just telling
votes.
them. It's
The
two
first
votes.
vote's the amendment. The second vote is the primary business item as amended. So now you have the primary business item to deny number 8 with the condition that's been voted on by amendment.
I got you, you're right, I got you. I've already, I think you just
Okay,
got-
we have,
the motion
okay,
is already there.
the motion is already in play. Do we have a second for all the items that are amended? You already second, so.
Second.
Okay, you did. Commissioner Guider, second. All in favor, this is a little confusing, guys, we'll get it right. Authorization to deny amendment to the 2016 intergovernmental agreement for the Foxhall project with 120 days is the built-in conditions for sunset. So we have so far, is that good with you all? Okay, I'm gonna call it, and all in favor, please raise your right hand. Please. We have a 5-0 unanimous vote, and that was a lot of laborious work, but again, thank you so much, Board of Commissioners. And we'll move on to the consent agenda. Tab number 9, authorization to approve a salary increase for a domestic violence prosecutor position in the Solicitor's General Office in the amount of $8,000 annually with no impact to the 2019 budget. Tab number 10, authorization to create 2 new juvenile programs position, Family Treatment Court Case Manager and the Family Treatment Court Child Services Case Manager to be funded by the OJJDP grant funds. Tab number 11, authorization to approve a contract for Laurie Johnson for Family Treatment Court Case Manager and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Tab number 12, authorization to approve a contract for Don Paul for the Family Treatment Court Child Services Case Manager and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Tab number 13, authorization to amend the budget and accept a supplemental grant award in the amount of $2,615 and for furniture and technology to our Family Treatment Court program with no match and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Tab number 14, authorization to amend the budget and accept a grant award in the amount of $1,000 for training for 2 employees in our Family Treatment Court program and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Tab number 15, authorization to approve a memorandum of understanding to allow free transfers between Connect Douglas Transit Services and Cobb Link Transit Services and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Tab number 16, authorization to amend the senior services budget for donations received for the senior picnic in the total amount of $1,879. Tab number 17, authorization to renew mutual aid agreements with Grady Emergency Medical Services, Puckett Emergency Medical Services, Metro Atlanta Ambulance, and West Georgia Ambulance Service, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Tab number 18, authorization to renew agreement with West Georgia Technical College for EMS clinical rotations, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Tab number 19, authorization to amend the agreement with Image Trend Software to allow for agency-level validation on patient care reports and fire incident reports at an initial cost of $11,350 as recommended by the Fire and EMS Committee, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. And finally, tab number 20, authorization to approve a change order with Barnsley Consultant for the courthouse security renovation project in the amount of $147,432 and amend the budget and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Board of Commissioners, that concludes our consent agendas. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on any particular item?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Carthen. No.
Okay.
I saw you.
Can you read tab 16 again?
Tab number 16 is authorization to amend the senior services budget for donations received for the senior picnic in the total amount of $1,879.
Chairman, I had made a correction to that agenda. I think I
Okay,
printed out
maybe
the
I'm-
one from,
Let me read it again.
I had removed item number 16,
Oh, so that's not in there then?
not for the senior services
Okay.
Senior
budget.
service, so that's,
I have an old, yeah, I printed it yesterday.
Yeah.
The one I'm reading off of, so just
there's a
disregard
16,
that.
but, so we're gonna omit that particular.
Yeah, omit that.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
So,
I yield.
thank you for bringing that to my attention. I was reading the one from yesterday. Any other comments from the Board of Commissioners on any particular item? Vice Chairman Robinson?
Yes, Director Watson,
Thank you.
come on down. Director Watson, can you just spend a little time for the record, for the public record, on what we're approving here for the MOU regarding the Connect Douglas?
Sure.
And what we're leading into in the next couple of weeks? Just.
With the Federal Transit Administration, the Atlanta Regional Commission, the ATL, and other planning agencies, a big word, a buzzword right now is connectivity. They're wanting an individual to be able to have using the current existing transit services, they want an individual to be able to have a seamless ride throughout the Atlanta region. And for us to help make that vision come true, we need a transfer point with Cobb Link. And that transfer needs to be free. So our staff has been working with Cobb Transit staff, and we have come up with a memorandum of understanding that allows those free transfers at the Epicenter Six Flags area. And so we vetted the memorandum of understanding. Cobb has vetted it, and now it's ready for signatures by both parties.
Yeah. So, and I appreciate that. And just for clarity for the public's sake, what I'm hearing is that, is it Route 40 for Douglas, Connect Douglas?
Route 40 for us, Route 30 for Cobb.
For Cobb, that citizens will, this was a key part of our whole approach to this, bringing this online, this public transportation. Again, everybody doesn't review the work session or come to it, and so this is the live version and the official vote. And one of the provisions that we made, it was actually a concession during that whole process. It was bipartisan. We worked it out at the committee, is that the Board of Commissioners made a decision to roll out a program that allowed us to not go all the way to H.E. Holmes, but to connect in through right there at Cobb County. And that was good. That was a good legislation. Everything doesn't have to be polarized. And I want to drive home that point, that every now and then, if you listen to others, you can find a pathway forward, right? It doesn't have to be extreme positions. And that's I mean, I'm very proud of how that was happened. And Commissioner Carthy, your predecessors, was key to us getting that to a place. And really it was me having to listen to him, to give him his respect on what his position was, that was too much expenses going all the way to Holmes. And I'm glad that he was able to concede for that, to get that out of committee. So I wanted to drive home that point. But on top of that, Representative Tanner, who was one of the co-sponsors, lead sponsors up at the state level for the ATL, acknowledged us, and Madam Chair, you were on the call, that acknowledged Douglas County and our design for that regional connectivity. They're like, well, we're watching you guys. Now, we didn't know. We weren't part of the ATL yet. We were just doing what we do here in Douglas, right? We do our own thing. But the state was watching us, and they commended us on our design and our approach to connectivity without being part of the ATL yet. So again, this is just I'm bringing this full circle to acknowledge all the work that you've done to this point, Gary. I think we're almost there as a point. So can you, just in clarifying this moment, I'll yield to the floor, what happens on the 19th related to this, or the 20th?
Well, two important dates, June 19th and June 20th. On June 19th, we're going to have a launch ceremony for the fixed route service. We'll have a number of dignitaries and representatives from jurisdictions and agencies throughout the region. We'll have a little special ceremony to kind of kick things off right at the very end of it. And then on June 20th, we go into official full launch with the bus service operating on a full daily schedule.
Very good. That's all I needed. Madam Chair, I'm going to go ahead and yield the floor to my peers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Vice Chairman Robinson. Commissioner Guy, do you have anything? I see your eyes. You okay? You're just looking? Okay. All right, guys. Okay, all right, we have a motion and a second for our consent agenda. Please prepare to cast your votes for the consent agenda.
Yeah.
We have a 5-0 unanimous vote, and this consent agenda, and the motion carries, and the consent agenda passes. I've just received just a notification from my legal counsel that he needed to bring something to my attention. Okay.
Madam Chair, just out of an abundance of caution, in speaking with Commissioner Mitchell and speaking with Commissioner Carthen, when item 8 was addressed as amended, the clerks that were recording the official minutes of that are going to have to check the tape to confirm exactly what was said. Before we leave here, what I would prefer to do, if the chair would be willing to do this, is entertain a motion by Commissioner Mitchell if he'd like number 8 reconsidered. If it's voted to reconsider, we think the intended motion as amended was supposed to read that it was a motion to deny item 8 with the additional condition that any future IGA on the subject matter have a 120-day sunset provision. But because of the dialogue, it sort of got cut off down here, and I don't want to rely on the tape to try to go back. You can reconsider this matter if you want to do it now, and the motion maker was Commissioner Mitchell. So if I'm just a little concerned I don't know what's on the tape.
Okay, we can do so, Commissioner Mitchell.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So back to legal. So item 8 is to reconsider that particular motion as stated by what Ken just stated. So that'll be the motion.
Yeah, if there's a second, Madam Chair, you would reconsider it?
Right.
Then it'd be back on the table for the second part of the motion and I can reread it if you need me to.
Okay.
So first is reconsider if there's
Right.
a second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? We have a motion and a second to reconsider. Please indicate by raising your right hand.
Deny.
Okay.
Okay.
We have
Got it.
4 to 1.
Okay.
Is that 4 to 1 to reconsider? And then, okay? Then you say you will restate so we can.
Yeah, now I understand the motion that was trying to be made, and what I interpreted, but I don't know that it got in this form, was a motion by Commissioner Mitchell to deny item 8 with the amendment of the condition offered by Commissioner Carthen that any future IGA on this subject have a 120-day sunset provision written into it. And I'd like to clarify if that's what the intent was.
That is correct. Absolutely. So that would be my motion as stated by our attorney.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Robinson.
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. This is important from a process perspective, and obviously we're in this motion, which is, well, but pay attention. Everybody's point should be heard. Madam Guider's down here like, okay, what's going on? We're getting sidetracked. And so my point of the denial was, well, our voice is just as important. And so if we've got the floor, we like I made my point, like, well, give consideration. It wasn't a challenge, it was a supplement. But it was, again, we probably need to put some rules about when we have these comments, when somebody has the floor, y'all go outside, because it gets distracting, right? Because we're trying to make our point up here, and we're listening to this, and you guys don't understand how that's reverberating all the way down here on the other side. So, again, I have no problem with what's being said. My point was my point, and I'll yield back.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the item as presented by our legal counsel, and also as presented, please indicate by raising your right hand. Okay, 5-0, the motion carries. Okay, is that good? We finished? Are you good now?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay. Yeah, the motion carried.
I just not want to rely on TV to try to clarify.
Yes, we have a 5-0 vote, and the motion carries. It's a unanimous vote. So next, we have our announcements for this coming week, and if I could bring up our Director of Communications, Mr. Rick Martin, if you could just read us our announcements, and then I'll pivot back to our Board of Commissioners to see if you have any final announcements.
Sure. Good morning.
Good morning.
Madam Chair, Board of Commissioners, staff. Number of announcements that we have. First and foremost, Chairman Jones's Walking the Talk listening session, second for the year. will be held Monday, June 10th, from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. at the Lithia Springs Public Library, located at 7100 Turner Drive in Lithia Springs. This is Madam Chair's second for this year. Moving on, and it was just mentioned moments ago by Director Watson, Douglas County Fixed Bus Route and Paratransit Service. The launch will occur on Thursday, June 20th, following a launch formal event ceremony that is happening the day before, Wednesday, June 19th at 11 o'clock at the Douglas County Transportation Center. It's a formal ceremony, and we will have a list of speakers as well. More details will be released very soon. The Douglas County 2020 Census Community Information Meeting will take place on June 20th at 6:30 p.m. here in Citizens Hall at the courthouse. The meeting is intended to provide information about the 2020 census, and will also provide information about opportunities to serve on the Douglas County 2020 Census Committee. Person to contact, Director of External Affairs, Tiffany Stewart Stanley, at 770-920-7436. And last but not least, Keep Douglas County Beautiful is inviting everyone to participate in the Great American Cleanup that is underway, and wants to let everyone know that the cleanup ends on June 30th. All information regarding the cleanup is online at keepdouglascountybeautiful.com. And for more information regarding that, the public is invited to contact Ms. Tabria Cobb. All this information will be on celebratedouglascounty.com as well. Thank you, Madam Chair, and the Board of Commissioners and staff.
All right, thank you so much, Director Martin. Board of Commissioners, would anyone have a comment or something about that's coming up? Commissioner Guider, you have comments.
Well, this is something coming up, but what happened in the past week. We had a town hall for District 4, and there was a tremendous turnout, a lot of good questions, and Madam Chair was there, and as Tiffany and David Good
and
was
Rick,
there.
Rick Martin.
And Rick Martin.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Rick. Didn't mean. And but it was a very good town hall. I love it when you get that close to the public and you can just converse. Also, I just want to compliment all those that were involved in the hydrangea festival. Me and some friends came, and we went through all the gardens, and it was just a tremendous event. It was just, and the comment I kept hearing from some of my friends, because I've been through the gardens before, but some of them that were new said, I didn't know this was in Douglas County. So it was just a wonderful time, and I really did like it being at the school, because you're within walking distance of two of the gardens.
Yes,
right there. So I liked the location this year. So I yield back.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Guider. Commissioner Mitchell, the third.
Yes, and I'll just ditto the Hydrangea Festival, which was a great event, great outing, hot, but great. And the other part I like to add is with the coffee conversation I had this past weekend, which well-attended senior citizens crowd who's looking forward to the Senior Citizen Center in Lithia Springs that's forthcoming, and they're all excited about it, and they're looking for sidewalks. So I'm asking this board to start looking for sidewalk money once we go through the whole sidewalk projects, to look for that. And with that, they're excited about the program, they're excited about the building, they're excited about where it's going, and all those great things. And it was a well-attended senior citizens outing, and job well done. And again, thank to those guys for coming out and taking part in my, I don't know what number, coffin conversation. And I got to give kudos to my dear friend David Good, who was there with all the bells and whistles about all the projects that we've got going on with the SPLOST, and how well he spoke in reference to how great things are and where we're moving with the SPLOST project. So kudos to you, and thanks again for hanging out with me this weekend. And that's all I've had. I yield back.
All right, thank you so much, Commissioner Mitchell. A lot of good things happening throughout the county. With that being said, I believe we don't have any further comments, and this meeting is adjourned.